Welcome back to the Land Between the Meadows Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host today, Jamison Cable, and today we're continuing and wrapping up our discussion on Lincoln County, Kentucky. We've talked about Stanford, Houstonville, Crab Orchard, Waynesburg, McKinney, Goshen, Chicken Bristle, Broughtontown, Hubble, Jumbo, Kings Mountain, a whole bunch of places in Lincoln County. And now we're going to wrap it up with a few more here. And it's probably going to be a bit of a shorter episode. I do apologize for that. But we're just getting to the end of the road. Now, before we get too much into this one, let's think about what we're going to do next. And I'll lay out some of that. We are going to start talking about Rockcastle. And I might try to get maybe some other people from the other counties to talk as well. From, say, Garrett and other counties as well. Because I think and hope that we'll be able to get back to normal schedule here in the next few weeks. And it'll give me a bit more time and a bit more availability, I guess, to kind of get in touch with some other people and get to places to research other places. I know this sounds super nerdy, but I talked to the librarian at Lincoln County, and there is a plan set up, and hopefully it is able to accommodate and get us back into normalcy, at least enough till we can go to the library. And speaking of books, don't forget you can try out Audible for free for 1 month, and you can get a free book. Just go to audibletrial.com/KYHistoryPod, and you can get a free book. It can be about Kentucky, or it can be about anything. Also, if you haven't yet, you can check out my appearance on Family Tree Nuts with Russ Carson. We talk a lot about just Kentucky history and just history in general. You should definitely check it out. And check out his Facebook page as well. A lot of good information, a lot of good work he's doing as far as genealogy and just history in general. So with that being said, let's hop into some of these smaller communities in Lincoln County. And again, like I said in the previous podcast, when you're looking at communities, there could be hundreds of them in a county. And Lincoln County is a good-sized county. Basically, you could have a community every square mile, which is a lot. But anyway, these first two communities we're going to talk about go hand in hand, because as one increased, the other one decreased. So we're starting out with Mildredgeville. That's a tough one. Mildredgeville. Mildredgeville. I believe that's how you say it correctly. It was rumored to be one of the first steam mills west of the Appalachian Mountains. The steam mill at Mildredgeville began at an unknown time, and the community grew around the mill. And at one time had 2 blacksmith shops, a wagon show, a hotel, a school, and a post office. Now, a train station was proposed to be built in Mildredgeville when the Southern Railroad came through. However, it wasn't built there. And this is where the other community comes in. The community of Moreland, which was named after Mr. Elliott Moreland, who lived 1 mile south of Mildredgeville, offered land for this train station to be built. And so that's where it was built. And the first passenger train passed through Moreland to Somerset in 1878. A post office was established in Mildredgeville in February of 1886, but was moved to Moreland 2 months later. The schools that were both in the two communities eventually merged together. This influenced the decline in Mildredgeville and the rise of Moreland. Just think about that. A simple train station being built in one community versus the other changes everything. Another community that we'll talk quickly about is Miracle. They had a school there because Jumbo was overcrowded, if you remember our talks about Jumbo, and that's about it. It was then consolidated to McKinney, just like Jumbo was consolidated to McKinney later on. Now, moccasin is a literal term. As Native American attacks decreased and the raids became more scarce in the 1800s, people came to the area and cleared out forests to start building log cabins. One day, someone went wandering around the area and found an Indian moccasin, hence the name Moccasin, and that's exactly how it got its name. Now, our biggest community in this episode to talk about is Ottenheim, and it's such a unique community, and well, I say unique as in just unique to Lincoln County because how it was formed. There was many communities like this that were spread all across Kentucky and Pennsylvania and Ohio, and really the whole country as time went. But this community starts with Jacob Ottenheim, who found a brochure about the land opportunities in Kentucky. And in 1883, he came to visit. He settled on land in Lincoln County, and it's now called Ottenheim. So he began to buy up the land south of Stanford in 1884. It eventually totaled 19,000 acres. While this was all going on and he was buying all the land, he was also approaching people getting off ships in New York. If an immigrant got off a ship and didn't have a really desired location that they were headed to, he would direct them to Stanford or Crab Orchard, which would be a place they could get to by train from New York. He didn't just say, "Hey, you should go to Crab Orchard," and then they go there. There was a little bit more to it than just that. Now, as this was all going on, the citizens of Lincoln County wrote Mr. Ottenheim a letter, and I'm going to read that letter. "Dear Sir, the undersigned businessmen of Stanford and vicinity, being informed that you have arranged to settle a colony in Lincoln County, do hereby take this method of expressing to you our satisfaction that you have undertaken this enterprise, believing as we do that it will greatly promote the welfare, development, and growth of our community, and that it will at the same time advance the prosperity and happiness of the people whom you represent. The people of this county are friendly to this immigration, and we give you assurance that your people will be kindly received and encouraged in every way possible, that no pain will be spared to give them the full protection of our laws, both as their persons and property, and to make them contented, prosperous, and useful citizens of the Commonwealth." Which I think this is a very promising letter from the people of Lincoln County and shows a very accepting sort of mentality, that they're willing to accept these immigrants. And these immigrants were coming from Germany, Ireland, all of Europe. These people were coming to make a life for themselves. And this letter was a very big hand forward kind of, hey, we're welcoming you, which is very, I guess, nice to say the least. It was a nice letter. Or you could even say unexpected, that they were so welcoming to immigrants. However, not everybody, I believe, had that same feeling. But Ottenheim, with buying so much land, he created the Lincoln Land Company and hired local lawyers and investors from Stanford. Because at the time, once I guess it got closer, there were people who kind of disagreed and didn't really want this to happen. So in order to appease people and get a better narrative going, Ottenheim hired local lawyers and investors to kind of help out the local people as well. But immigrants flooded into Lincoln County, buying land for $5 to $15 per acre, and created a thriving community. Which, of course, as more immigrants poured into Lincoln County, there were hostilities. There was feuds about who was a native Kentuckian. The Kentuckians who had already settled there and had been there for many decades did have some issues about nationalities and so forth. Things weren't just all peaches and cream. There was a criminal element near Ottenheim, nothing to do with the people of Ottenheim, but there was a horse thief or horse ring where thieves would go and steal horses and bring them in at night and so forth. And it's told that as the local sheriffs narrowed in on the culprit or the head thief, I guess you could call him, and as one of the thieves was on a trip to Harrodsburg, the thief was stopped and ordered to put his hands up by the sheriff. But instead of doing that, he reached for his rifle, and the sheriff shot him in the head. However, it didn't kill him, it broke his jaw, and he did end up going to jail for a while. The horse thieving ring, though, still continued in a while. Now, as people may know now, but Ottenheim did have a very German Catholic background, and you could say it is a bit of a religious community. There's a story about that I called it the hog story because it was very interesting. There was a man who was a very lucrative man, a drunk. He kind of was in on the ways of the world. And as the churchgoers tried to encourage this man to come and correct his ways and come to church and forgive him and be forgiven of his sins, they pursued and tried to convince him. But finally he said he would rather be eaten up here on his farm as to be consumed by an ever-hungry church. Now things get interesting now. After a while, after this boast that he made, people hadn't seen the man, and after a grieving family member reported that the man had had a horrible accident. He had entered into the pig pen, and somehow he lost his balance and fell into the pig pen, and the beast consumed him. That's right, the pigs or the hogs ate him. That's a bit much. It says that they had torn half his flesh off of his body, half his flesh off his bones when they had found him. But moving on, St. Sylvester's Catholic Church is in Ottenheim, Kentucky, and is still standing today. And it's very unique to say because it's a Catholic church right in the middle of rural Kentucky. Not to say there's not Catholic churches everywhere, in probably every community, probably in most communities in Kentucky, but it was built so long ago and is still up, is still standing now. But we'll move on out of Ottenheim. Now there is more information, of course, about Ottenheim that I would like to get a hold of and look more into about the Ottenheim Hotel and etc. and other bits of history, but I just do not have the means to do that at the moment. But it's another larger community in Crab Orchard. But moving on to Preachersville, and it was literally named for the many preachers that once lived there. Preachersville once had a store, a school, and 2 churches located between Crab Orchard and Lancaster, and it's actually right on the Lincoln County, Garrett County line, but it's on the Lincoln side, of course. One of the earliest settlers there was the Joseph Pettis family. Now, one of the most famous people from Preachersville was Carrie Moore Nation, who was once described as the destructive princess of Preachersville. She was born in 1846 and became known as the anti-liquor, anti-tobacco, anti-mason, anti-sex crusader who made a hatchet a symbol of civil disorder, as she went from saloon to saloon and state to state, destroying things that she did not approve of. There's a lot more to talk about with her as well, and we'll get there someday. But looking now at Roland, and at the Haley Hotel in Roland, you could get a special dish called dandelion greens. During the early 1900s, Roland had a jail, and Tom Farrell's Saloon, Bowles Coal Yard, and Higgins Grocery Store. Turnersville is our last little community we'll talk about, and it lies north of Houstonville. The Turners settled there in the late 1700s, early 1800s, and the Clarence Snigger School was built and operated until the 1840s. 2 toll gates were stationed at Turnersville as well, which toll gate was used to help create better roads for Kentucky's ever-changing landscape at the time. And that's all we have, or that's all I have now for these communities in Lincoln County. And now my plan, of course, is to try to get to every county eventually, but also to loop back to some of these counties as well, because a lot of counties in Kentucky have historical societies that have a bit more information that I can get a hold of and get in contact with them and talk a bit more about certain aspects. And also I've gotten in contact with the Kentucky Oral History and the Lincoln County Oral History as well, which is done by the Lincoln County Historical Society, to try and get these old stories of people who lived in these areas. Well, people still live in these areas, but people who lived in these areas back in the early 1900s and such, so that we can get firsthand experience and firsthand accounts of these places, and we can go back and look more at Mildredgeville, and there's so much more at Ottenheim too. There's a lot to talk about with Ottenheim. Such a unique place, really. When you look at Lincoln County, Ottenheim is such a unique place to delve into. So just different from all the other communities in Lincoln County. And I was thinking mainly because it was settled by immigrants, but yet all of Lincoln County was settled by immigrants at one time. William Whitley and Benjamin Logan, they were immigrants from the East Coast, from Virginia, and so forth. The Ottenheim immigrants were just immigrants 100 years later. So it's different and it's unique, and that's just what's so cool about history. There's so many unique little stories that you can find, and I hope to keep bringing them to you. Hopefully, we can get back on our normal schedule here soon, and we can start putting out some more episodes with me and Mr. Pope. And the plan is, once we get back together, then I will try to we'll put out an episode with me and Mr. Pope once a week on our normal Sunday evenings. And then we will have these bonus episodes during the middle of the week. Hopefully I've been able to entertain as much as I can with just me and our little interviews and so forth. But with that all being said, make sure you like and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at KY History Pod. And if there's anybody that you have in mind that you would like to suggest that we get on here as far as an author or a Kentucky Spotlight, please let us know. I'm constantly sending out emails to whoever will listen. And we have a few more coming up here shortly. that I believe you will enjoy as well. Don't forget audibletrial.com/KYHistoryPod. I hope you're staying safe, healthy, and happy. With that being said, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.